like this catastrophic collapse in Kentucky.
I was in shock. I was in disbelief. It's stranger than fiction.
As 8 historic cars were swallowed whole.
This happened to be inside a building with millions of dollars worth of cars sitting on top.
It's a miracle the damage wasn't so much worse. America, known for its enduring love affair with the automobile, of all shapes and sizes. One of the greatest is the legendary Corvette. Owner and enthusiast Sean Preston explains.
What's special about a Corvette? Well, it's America's first sports car, and it's designed for the open road.
Named after a small, fast warship, the Corvette was inspired by Europe's small, fast sports cars.
Driving a Corvette, it's freedom. It feels like I own this part of the road, and me and the car are one. And I feel like I'm driving an iconic piece of American history.
In 1994, a museum celebrating this icon was built beside the Corvette factory in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Like the car, it boasted a distinctive look, thanks to the trademark Sky Dome.
You know, the Sky Dome is unique to the National Corvette Museum. You don't see this yellow structure and the red spire going through the middle of any building that we could think of, right? And it was done so that we could have a cathedral, if you will, to all things Corvette. Many of our unique pieces are kept in the Sky Dome, from each of the generations to one-of-a-kind prototypes. The Sky Dome acts as the shrine. It's an iconic structure with an iconic brand.
The unique Sky Dome towered strong and proud over the museum and its precious contents for the next 20 years. On February the 12th, 2014, just before 5:39 a.m., a burglar alarm was triggered inside the dome. Police rushed to the scene. Geotechnical engineer Mike Marassa was called soon after.
When the police arrived, they saw a great deal of dust in the air that they thought was smoke originally, so initiated a call to the fire department, who responded to what they thought was going to be a fire.
The CCTV revealed something much more shocking.
They neither had a thief nor a fire, but a massive hole in the middle of their iconic Sky Dome with 8 of their collector cars at the bottom.
The 10-meter deep sinkhole had swallowed millions of dollars of invaluable icons, and it continued to grow.
So when I arrived on the scene, the feeling in this room was surreal. The cars were almost like litter on the ground, this massive chasm of a sinkhole in the middle of the structure. The questions just kept mounting. How stable is the structure? How big is the problem that we're dealing with? There were way more unknowns than there were knowns.
Most concerning, the landmark red spire was in imminent danger.
It was hanging over the edge of the sinkhole, so the potential for any of this portion of the floor to collapse was pretty high. Had we lost the spire, it likely would have collapsed the entire structure.
The spire was only held in place by the steel connections in the roof of the dome. But the dome wasn't designed to support the spire. Who knew how long it would hold?
Mike and the team were in a race against time.
One of the riskiest and most immediate needs was to stabilize the spire structure. It involved supporting the structure with a steel element called a micropile.
These micropiles are steel cylinders about 1.5 meters long and 25 centimeters wide, which would be screwed together and drilled down through the cave into solid rock below.
The installation of 2 of the 5 micropiles that helped stabilize this structure were being installed immediately adjacent to the 35-foot drop-off. It was a risky operation.
Mike and the team worked tirelessly, and within a couple of weeks, the spire and dome were safe. Meanwhile, news of the collapse quickly spread.
Made national and international news. It brought reporters from all across the country. It brought geologists and cave experts.
And it was quite a circus of people that were walking around in amazement of this disaster that was at their feet.
The question was why, after nearly 20 stable years, had the floor collapsed? Kentucky's famous geology was an obvious suspect. Professor of Geoscience, Dr. Jason Polk, examined the wreckage.
One of the most cave-rich places that you have in the United States. We have over 5,000 known and mapped caves here. You can see extensively inside the caves. They can be literally 50, 60, 70 feet wide, 30, 40 feet tall, and they can go for miles and miles and miles.
This is Crump's Cave. It sits in the same rock as the museum and the nearby Mammoth Caves, the longest cave system in the world. All the result of soluble limestone.
Basically, the water is able to dissolve the rock as it picks up carbon dioxide in the soil and from the atmosphere, and it creates a really mild acid that over thousands of years dissolves the rock very slowly. And that, in turn, creates these large cave systems, which then become underground rivers, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger until eventually it gets too close to the surface and you can have a sinkhole collapse occur.
Caves take forever to form, but the roof can collapse in the blink of an eye. You never even knew there was a cave there. And that's what happened with the Corvette Museum.
Looking at the Corvette Museum, you can see pretty clearly that this is the same type of environment where you had a large, massive chamber. Eventually, it's just its time, because it's the nature of the landscape for this rock to dissolve and for the rock to become too thin and for collapses.
Jason mapped the cave beneath the museum and discovered the sky dome was positioned almost perfectly above it. So how had engineers not noticed this before building the structure?
Generally, a typical geotechnical investigation would involve drilling through the soil and stopping once you hit bedrock, once you hit something hard.
In the 90s, engineers hit solid rock 9 meters down, and construction went ahead. So although it seems like a mistake to build here, they had no reason to drill deeper, and the cave lay undiscovered another 12 meters below.
So it's not anything that can be identified as negligence. Structural roof collapse of a cave is extremely rare. This structural collapse of the roof of a cave also happened to be inside a building with millions of dollars worth of cars sitting on top.
Now it was clear what they were dealing with. The team had another challenge on their hands: how to get the sky dome back in operation above an active cave.
The design team and the construction team sat down and went through a number of options. Everything from relocating this structure, trying to fill the volume of the cave with an incompressible material to stabilize the cave. And ultimately what was decided was to isolate the structure from the cave below.
First, horizontal sheet piles sealed the cave, topped with 4,000 tons of crushed rock. Next, just like the spire, micropiles were driven through everything, deep into the bedrock.
These hugely long micropiles act like a grid of solid stilts for the new sky dome floor to sit on. So the cave could grow, collapse, whatever, the floor would stay put.
Supported by foundations more than 30 meters below, the new sky dome floor was on solid ground.
So if the entire area were to collapse, the structure would stay intact because it is isolated from all of the geologic hazards that lie beneath our feet.
With the sky dome safe, the museum had turned catastrophe into triumph.
The red line denotes the actual sinkhole. So now I am standing on the part of the sky dome that fell 30 feet below me. bringing with it 8 of our beloved Corvettes. 5 of these Corvettes could not be restored. They're in their original condition, so we can honor them and also tell the story about what happened on that fateful day. And in fact, we've kept part of the sinkhole alive and well.
The new exhibit opened exactly 2 years after the disaster, and visitor numbers have gone through the roof.
The museum really embraced the tragedy and used it to their advantage, and to see it in existence, standing strong, it feels good. And I'm sure it'll last for a long time to come.